What's up, everybody? Alex here, back again with another video. This one will be a little bit different, regardless of when you watch this. When I'm recording this, it's about 7 o'clock on a Friday night. It's been cold and rainy all day, and it's getting colder. And I thought, there was a thread I was going to jump on, and this is the perfect time to jump on that thread. Of course, also doing a little, I'm not going to call it a specialty beer thing, but I guess depending on who you are, it could be a specialty beer. But I'll talk more about the thread I'm jumping on. It has a lot to do with the fall and kind of moving from the fall to the winter. And to me, as a beer fan, we are right now in prime stout season. And not only stout season, but we're sort of transitioning into getting away from just your basic milk stouts or, those kind of things, and really moving in to your imperial stout range, right? We're talking about these big, thick, dark, pours that you sip on for an hour or so, high alcohol content, a good warming going down. It's kind of become the whole experience. And I thought, what a great way to pair a thread that I'm doing for a good friend of mine, as well as sort of a beer pairing. I'm not going to call it a pairing, but what we're diving into tonight and I'll be sipping on is kind of one of the classics in the craft beer world. This brewery's gone through a lot over the last several years, and I think this beer in general has kind of it's become kind of polarized. It still does have a strong fan base, myself included, but also it's become one of those things that was so overhyped for so long that now it just seems like nobody, cares, whatever. Everybody's different about it, but I'm still a big fan of it. And I think when it comes to buying barrel-aged imperial stouts that you can find on your local shelves, I still think there's nothing better and more consistent than the Founders KBS. If you don't know, not a beer person, whatever. Founders KBS is a imperial stout brewed with a bunch of chocolate and a bunch of coffee, and then aged for a year in bourbon barrels. It comes in at, what is it this year? 12%. Crack that open. Of course, beer people out there might appreciate the proper glassware. This is actually a Founders KBS glass. I'm a fanboy. What can you say? Good little smoke coming off there. Nice and dark. All right. Boom. See, you're getting the whole experience here, eh? Oh, I love it. We'll get to that in a second, but just chocolate, coffee, oak, roasty, a little booze. I got this pretty warm. This is probably about 55 degrees or so. The best temperature to drink your stouts, especially your big stouts. Big vanilla. Cheers, everyone. I still like it. Ooh. A little bit hotter than I remember. Anyway, get your stouts out if you're a drinking fan. If you're not, get whatever you want out. The thread I'm jumping on is one from my good friend Sam St. John, who just did a video recently talking about his fall records. The records he listens to most sort of nearing the end of fall, sort of in this time that we are now, which is mid-November for us in the States, gearing up for Thanksgiving, all that kind of stuff. And so he showed a number of great records, and I thought, as I'm kind of theming this, because I posted a video several weeks ago about the records I listened to during the Halloween season, and that kind of works here too. But this to me is more about, we're getting really into the fall now. It's getting cold out. We're bundling up a lot more. We're drinking heavier beers. We're doing all those things. So yeah, there is a different element of music I'm listening to. And I also wanted to sort of cater this a little bit to Sam and his channel, and typically the stuff that he appreciates more. I mean, if you know Sam, I'm not going to show a bunch of death metal records or a bunch of progressive metal or something like that. But Sam and I also do have a lot of crossover, I think, in the music that we do like. So Sam, when you watch this, I hope you appreciate this and sort of where I went with this, because I sort of did, these records I love and I do listen to, and I'll talk about why I listen to them so much, but also kind of have you in mind with 80% of them, and then I'll slide one in that you probably won't care, couldn't care less about. But let's dive into it. So this first one This is an artist that I was certainly late to the game on, and I don't have anywhere near his full discography, although I would love to. There's just so much, and you only have so much money and so much space and all those different things. But again, an artist I was late to, singer-songwriter Vane. And then as soon as I heard him, I was like, yeah, this is the kind of guy I could get into. But specifically, it just puts me in the mood, most of his stuff does, in this mood of the late night, the cocktails, the bar glasses slamming, it's cold out, just sort of like this pub atmosphere, this very jazz club sort of atmosphere, in the city sort of thing. I don't know, it's hard to explain, and when I show you, it might make sense, but when I just listen to this guy, it reminds me of the end of fall heading into the winter. It makes me want to have a cocktail in my hand, listen to it late at night, look at maybe the snowfall, whatever that might be. And of course, I'm talking about the great Tom Waits. Went ahead and grabbed his debut, which, there's a lot of people in the VC that are a lot more qualified to talk about Tom Waits than I am. But I could have gone with any of, I think I have his first 4, and then some of his later ones. But, this is sort of obviously the starting point where you start a lot of people with Tom Waits, but also is kind of like, not an anomaly record, but, his record sounds so different compared to what he kind of started as. But just some absolute beautiful songs on here. Obviously, Old 55 that the Eagles covered a couple years later. Martha is such a classic. Old Shoes and Picture Postcards, and I know one of Sam's favorite songs of all time is I Hope I Don't Fall in Love with You, is just beautiful. And when I listen to this, again, it puts me in the space of it's cold out, we're sipping on a good beverage, the lights are down low, and let's just get into some mood music. So I'm all in on that. I'm going with the debut. Closing Time from Tom Waits, 73. This was on Asylum, I believe. Yes. Next, this one is also definitely in the Sam vibe. The other side of, I think I would put Tom in like the late night sort of, cocktail drinking hour. This group, I'm going to put more in like the morning, hot coffee, looking out your window sort of thing. Sam and I actually talked about this band when him and I were doing a video together last week. And I'm a huge fan of as well. But specifically, I pulled this one because I'm a big fan of this series. And I think when we talk about the fall, and especially some of those fall mornings, drinking that coffee, looking out the window, whatever that might be, I love their folkier stuff, just maybe 1, 2 of them singing with an acoustic guitar and a banjo. I don't need the full band. I don't need the full production or the arrangements. I just want to hear Seth and Scott sing their songs together. So I'm going to go with the Gleam 3 or the third Gleam. These Gleam series releases are EPs technically, but they're longer EPs. They're not like 3 songs. That seem to sort of side on this edge of, these are just like very acoustic, folky songs. There's a lot of different places you can go with the Avett Brothers, but when it comes to the fall, I love this type of stuff more. Although I do love their stuff, all of their stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Gleam 3 or the third Gleam. If you're unsure about the Avett Brothers and you do like some folkier stuff, I think this is a great place to start. Sam, I know you're a huge fan. You could probably talk ad nauseum about these guys more than I could, but I've always been a fan. And I'm going to go with the Gleam 3 for my number 2 pick. This next band, I might do a little bit of a dive into just because I don't see anybody talking about them. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm just unpopular. We know that. You could probably figure out why I'm unpopular. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about this band. And again, one of those bands that you just struggle to sort of to pigeonhole. They're certainly folky. They're certainly indie. They're indie folk. There's a lot of those. But these guys have like this weird sort of, I don't even know. There's like this theatrical, it's almost like progressive folk, but more like progressive from the standpoint of like, again, the theatrics of it and the concepts of it, not necessarily like, they're not playing in like 9/8 or anything with extended guitar solos. Sometimes I've been folded into my favorite, folk metal. I don't really know what that is. But I'm talking about the Decemberists. I love this band. Their band formed, I guess, early to mid-2000s out of Portland, I believe, led by Colin Malloy. Again, a bizarre band to pigeonhole, but again, definitely that folkier, the more conceptual sort of side of things. But male female vocals kind of going back and forth, very conceptual. A lot of concept albums. They tell these grandiose stories. And this, I believe, was maybe I'd be guessing, sort of that mid-career, maybe their fourth or fifth record called The Crane Wife. Crane Wife is a great song that leads off that some of you might know. But the big one on here that sort of, I guess, blew him up a little bit was Two Sons and Daughters from this record. But it was in The Office, I think. It was in an episode of The Office, for those who like The Office, down at Schrute Farm somewhere, and all of them started singing the song. So if you are a fan of The Office, you've heard of them and you've heard the track. But this is where it comes from. But yeah, when the weather turns and I want that storytelling, that grandiose sort of conceptual side of stuff, I'm a big fan of the Decemberists. If you don't know and you want somewhere to start with them, I'd start either here, Crane Wife, or I believe it's the record that came after it, Hazards of Love. Are both really great, strong records. And if you like what you hear there, then you might want to explore into some of the earlier or later stuff. But I think those are the two main ones right in the middle where I think they were at their peak. So yeah, the Crane Wife from the Decemberists. I love that sketch, that artwork too. It was awesome. Another band that I don't hear a ton about, Sam, actually curious if you're a fan, because I don't know if I've heard you talk about them. Another band from the Pacific Northwest. I've gone through some lineup changes. I believe at this point they've released maybe 4 or 5 records now. But this was a band, when I first heard them, I was kind of hooked on this. I was in this sort of vibe of, again, the indie folk kind of stuff that obviously that's the theme for this show and the stuff that Sam typically likes. But to me, it was a little more psychedelic. It was a little bit more moody. It almost gave me like Beach Boys-y type vocal harmony vibes, which I hadn't heard in that style of music before. And I find myself going back to this record still quite a bit. It's the second from Seattle band Fleet Foxes, called Helplessness Blues. I played the hell out of this record earlier when it came out. It's still one of my favorite songs, is Blue Spotted Tail. I just think it's the most beautiful song, especially hearing it sort of again in the fall. But they had a lot of sort of hits that later became known by other people. It's like the Pentatonics did a version of their White Winter Hymnal, which is off their debut, I believe. Amongst some other things, Mykonos is a huge song for them, which is off their debut. So they've had their hits and they're a little bit more well known. Again, they're kind of led by one guy at this point, it seems like. I haven't been as crazy about some of their later stuff, although I did like Shore more than Crack Up. If you don't know these guys, this means nothing to you. But again, that cool sort of indie, acoustic, folky, psychedelic-ish, moody, atmospheric, great vocal harmonies, great melodies. I love listening to these guys, though, specifically in the fall and in the winter. Well, Sam, I lied. I did do 4 that are sort of in your vein. And then, of course, I had to throw in one more for, just because I have to. I feel like I have to do a prog record in every video I do. But this one is twofold. A, the cover, the album art cover for me, just screams what we're talking about. It's cold. It's late fall, early winter. You just look at it, you kind of get a little bit cold. The title of the record itself is like, ooh, that sounds a little bit, in the vibe of what we're looking for. And I think in their catalog, it is criminally underrated and underappreciated. And I'm talking about Genesis, Wind and Weathering. Why do I think it's I think critically underappreciated because, in the Genesis camp, you sort of have 2 main factions. You have the early Peter Gabriel, foxtrot, selling England by the pound, progressive rock nerds. And I say that politely and with all due respect and support for who you are. And then you have the later, I got into Genesis when they became like a really good pop band, or I like their more accessible stuff. I love Duke and I love the self-titled and all that kind of stuff. But after Peter Gabriel left in the mid-70s, they put out 2 albums that still had Steve Hackett on guitar. And this was their second one. And I just think that this is, it's a lot to say it's as good as The Lamb or as good as Selling England. But I think it's right up there. If those are 10s, I'm putting this at a 9. So this is, I guess, the second record that Phil Collins would be singing on. And again, look at that cover. This is a Hipgnosis cover, I believe, too. That just sort of screams cold, fall, early winter days. But I'm a big fan of this record. So whatever camp you're in of the Genesis camp, if you're only into like the very, very early progressive stuff with Peter Gabriel, give this and Trick of the Tail, the one that came before it, give these a little bit more respect and appreciation. I think those 2 records specifically are going to be so... They're continuing to sort of grow in respect amongst the progressive rock fans, but I hope even more down the road they continue to grow. So that's my 5th pick, Wind and Wuthering. Genesis, this was 76. This one came out. So, yeah, they're the 5. Let's top ourselves off here, go in for another sip. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. We'll let the video go on a little bit longer. At this point, it's like if you're going to stay and listen to me be an idiot for 15 minutes, you'll do it for 16. I do still love this beer. Ooh. You know, I say it's hotter than I remember. And when I say hotter, I mean like boozier. But I also don't remember the last time I had it. So maybe I'm just full of shit. Anyway, we're approaching 17 minutes. Appreciate you all sticking through this far. Sam, love you, brother. It was so great catching up with you. Hope this thread catches on a little bit and other people start posting some of this stuff too. To get you up to 1,000 subs. We want you in the 1,000 sub club. You deserve it, man. Cheers from Ohio, and hope life's treating you well. And for everybody else out there, hope you all have a great day, great weekend. And yeah, keep spinning, keep doing the thing, and we'll chat soon. Cheers, y'all.